Welcome to the November 13th, very chilly, cold day out there, meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Birmingham. Please stand as I invite Tracy Moran Adams to the podium to offer the invitation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, President Scott. In the movie Forrest Gump, there's a scene where young Jenny and young Forrest run out into a cornfield to escape Jenny's abusive and alcoholic father. Jenny drops to her knees with Forrest and says, "Pray with me, Forrest." And then she prays a very pleading prayer of desire. "Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far away from here." In light of many unsettling circumstances that we face, there are times when we want to pray such a prayer, but we also remember to pray a prayer of thanksgiving. Dear God, thank you for the many blessings of life you provide and for drawing our hearts closer to you so that we can offer greater service to others. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tracy, for that invitation. Lots of things to pray about these days. Well said. I'd now like to invite Club Secretary J.W. Parker to come up for announcements and introductions of guests. J.W.
Thanks, Scott. Welcome back. So not a whole lot to announce this week. Of course, if you have any events coming up and you'd like me to share them, please send them my way. So first, we had want to always report back on things that are happening. We had a great coffee last Wednesday mix at Revelator. You can see there some of our Kiwanis, and you can bring your animals to Revelator apparently. So there's an animal in that picture, and you can see lots of people having lots of fun at 7:30 in the morning. Great job by Captain Long and Carol Hines on this initiative. There'll be other opportunities to connect outside of Kiwanis in the future. I'm just going to keep talking because we, and that's my favorite photo of Mary right there, which is terrific. And I think that's the last photo, so now I can stop talking about it. But please, thanks to everyone who showed up, and hopefully we'll have more in the future. We have another great event coming up on December 6th. And it's at the Museum of Art, just celebrating the season with Kiwanis. There have been a lot of rumors that this is an all-day party. That's not accurate. It's just at 6 p.m. So if everyone could just quiet down about that. Just show up at 6 at the Museum of Art, and we're going to have an absolute ton of fun. We've got lots of guests this week, so I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to do that. Please, when you're a guest, just stand up with your host. And I will start with Will Aycock as a guest.
My guest today is David Stanfield. David is a colleague at Research Investment Management, where he's director of fixed income research and high yield. And he enjoys writing fiction in his pastime.
Great. Mary O'Neill.
Yes. My guest today is Taylor Pruitt, who is a newly admitted lawyer to the bar and works with the Schreiber Law.
Correct. Charlie Faulkner is somewhere and has a guest.
I'm happy to have my wife Susan with me here today.
Chris Mason has a guest.
I'm proud to have my friend Paul DeMarco, 30-year partner with Parsons Lee.
Whitney Wright has a couple of guests.
My guests are Rob Jenkins and Rico Kamada, who are both colleagues of mine at Cook and Bynum, and they are both research analysts on our fund research.
Eva Robertson has a guest.
My guest today is Lori Dixon. She works at the Community Foundation, which focuses primarily on employee engagement and community action.
And finally, Rob Sexton has a guest.
And my guest is Dr. Charles Robinette. Charles recently retired after 40 years of service at Brookwood, OB/GYN. He's an avid reader of military history, and especially works of our speaker. He's also, more importantly, the father-in-law of our Ashley Robinette.
Terrific. Let's give a warm Kiwanis welcome to all of our guests. And back to Scott.
Thanks, JW, and welcome to all our guests. Very excited to have Winston Groom here today, and a fantastic crowd, great crowd, so thank you very much. But before we get to our speaker, as we all know, new members are the lifeblood of our club, and I'd like to invite Leanne Speak and Ed Rowell to the podium to introduce new members, Courtney Christy Kelly and Lucy Turner. Come on up. You going first, Ed? Okay.
I'm on first because I'm second. I'm your district leader. On behalf of myself and fellow sponsors Donna Smith and Chris Stone, I'm proud to introduce the club's new member, Lucy Turner. I almost said newest member, but I've got a new one right behind me. Lucy was born and raised in Gulfport, Mississippi. She graduated from Agnes Scott College with a BA and went on to get an MBA from the University of Southern Mississippi. Deciding on the ministry as her career field, she attended Columbia Theological Seminary, earning her Master of Divinity degree. She is the Executive Associate Pastor at Independent Presbyterian Church, where not too long ago, roles were reversed and she was introducing me as a new affiliate member. As the Executive Associate Pastor, she ministers to and is connected with a congregation of over 2,000. She supervises a staff of 18 full-time members and 44 part-time members. With these contacts and responsibilities, she is involved with countless activities in the Birmingham area and the personnel who lead them and provide support to them. Her business, civic, and social affiliations include the Association of Fundraising Professionals and the Presbytery of Shepherds and Lampton. This is an administrative district of the Presbyterian Church USA, which comprises 94 churches in central Alabama. She especially enjoys providing for the welfare of the city of Birmingham through her work as the Development Director for the IPC Foundation. In 2017, they awarded grants totaling just over $1.8 million. 69% of the grants were awarded to ministries and nonprofit agencies here in the Birmingham area. Lucy is an active and enthusiastic sport person. She's fly fished streams from North Carolina to Montana. She has recently turned from a pheasant hunt in England and quail hunts whenever and wherever possible. And she says, yes, she can cook this game herself. She's an avid reader, and Winston Groom is one of her favorite authors. I have no idea how she worked with Jay to get Winston to be the speaker on the day she was brought into the club, but here he is. Good work, Lucy. We need to get you on the program committee. Lucy has dedicated her life to serving others and is an established and well-connected leader in our community. She will greatly contribute to the activities of her club. Join me in welcoming her today to our club.
Next.
I am proud today to introduce the newest member of the Kiwanis Club of Birmingham, Courtney Christy Kelly. I've known Courtney since we met in kindergarten at Brookwood Forest Elementary School. Courtney is the principal of her architecture firm, where she provides comprehensive architectural and design services for custom residential and equestrian projects. Courtney is the second generation Kiwanis member. Her mother, Lowell Christie, is an active member in our club. Courtney graduated from Mount Brook High School and went on to attend the University of the South in Sewanee, Tennessee, where she received a Bachelor's of Arts in Economics with honors in May of 2001. While attending Sewanee, she was the treasurer of the student assembly, and she was a member of the varsity equestrian team. She also participated in the study abroad program, where she studied Spanish culture, art, and architecture in Madrid, and hiked a portion of El Camino del Santiago. She then attended the National Outdoor Leadership School in Baja, Mexico, where she studied culture, ecology, low-impact living and leadership while traveling by kayak in the Sea of Cortez. She later moved on to the economics PhD program at the University of Virginia. She completed her studies at Georgia Tech, where she received a Master's of Architecture in 2008. While completing her Master's, she placed in the Portman Design Competition and participated in another study abroad program where she studied modern architecture and urban design in Berlin, Barcelona, Paris, and the Netherlands. Courtney's interests include equestrian sports, art, and graphic design. She is a member of the Junior League of Birmingham, where she has served on the Youth Leadership Forum, Birmingham Botanical Gardens Can You Dig It, the Creative Committee, and was a provisional member and the Graphics Committee Chair. She is a member of the American Institute of Architects, Into Architecture Committee, Parker Roundtable, the Cahaba River Society, where she served as the Junior Board President and was honored as the Volunteer of the Year in 2014. She's also in the Special Equestrians, is a Sewanee Beyond the Gates mentor, and volunteers for Outreach Building Trips. She currently lives in Mount Brook and is married to Justin Kelly and has 2 children, Everett and Margaret. And co-sponsors Lowell Christie, Richard Kurt, and I are proud to present Courtney and Christy Kelly as the newest member of the oldest, biggest, and best Kiwanis club in the world.
Courtney and Lucy, welcome to the club. Hope that you can join the greeting team in the weeks ahead at the badge station and greet members so they can get to know you and you can get to know them. So welcome. All right, let's get on with the introduction to the head table so we can get to our speaker. Ed Rowell, U.S. Army Colonel, retired, Kiwanian since 2006. Ed, thanks again for your help procuring our speaker last week, Steve Conlon. Lucy Turner, new member just introduced by Ed. Hopefully a good thing for me when one of your ministers gets admitted to the club. Thank you. Leanne Speak, President, ALC Contractors, LLC, legacy member since 2012. Leanne is a current member of our board of directors and is an active member of our membership committee. Excuse me. Courtney and Christy Kelly, who you just heard introduced by Leanne, as mentioned, she's also a legacy member. Tracy Moran Adams. Tracy, thank you again for that invitation. Tracy is a senior EVP, Chief Community Development and Corporate Social Responsibility Officer at Renaissance Bank, Kiwanian since 2009. J.W. Carpenter, Executive Director, Birmingham Education Foundation, Kiwanian since 2013. And finally, Jake Reese, owner of Alabama Booksmith, Kiwanian since 2004, a huge help to us in the programs committee. Jake has the honor of introducing our speaker. Please join me in recognizing the head table.
Thank you, President Scott. How appropriate during this time of year as we honor those men and women who protect these United States, that our distinguished guest is one of that group. He served in Vietnam in 1966 and 1967 as an officer with the 1st Brigade of the 4th Infantry Division. Thank you for your service. That tour of duty, his career as a journalist following the war, and his unique ability as a master storyteller has put him in a prestigious place as one of the country's leading historians. He has written 20 books. His latest, The Allies, Roosevelt, Churchill, Stalin, and the Unlikely Alliance that won World War II, may very well be his best. Like many of you and our new members, I've also read a boatload of books on this subject, and considered myself pretty darn informed. However, I must admit, this was an education unto itself. I'm proud to announce that today is publication date. And this is the first official stop on Winston's national book tour. Even though his reputation has been established through his New York Times serious best-selling works about almost every American war, and his being named a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, the world will forever know him as the creator of Forrest Gump. This delightful little book has sold almost 2 million copies and is still going strong. There are signed copies of both books in the lobby. Fellow Kiwanis and guests, I am pleased and honored to present Winston Groom.
Jake is a tough act to follow. Trust me on that. Let me see here. Y'all are my third guinea pigs. I had 2 speeches in Atlanta. One at the Atlanta History Center, which they seemed to like, and one in a place called Milton, Georgia, where he got the hook. And they said, he's talking too long. Well, I got one speech here, and I'm going to have to do it on the fly, because it lasts too long to hear. But you look like a pretty admirable crowd, so what I'll do is just do the best I can with it. You know, when you take these 3 characters, Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, and Joseph Stalin, Stalin was a horrible character, but he was an ally. And you got in bed with strange people in those days. You had to. Churchill said at the Tehran conference, which is the first time that these three, what they call the big 3, they met. And Churchill said it was the greatest concentration of political power in the history of the world. He was certainly right about that. But the fact was that none of them really trusted the other one. I mean, Roosevelt didn't really trust Churchill because Roosevelt hated the empires, and the British had at that point the greatest empire in the world, and he was afraid that after the war, the British would try to reassemble his empire, and Churchill didn't really trust Roosevelt because he thought that Roosevelt was gullible with regard to Stalin, and Stalin didn't trust anybody, including himself, so he said. So you have these 3 disparate people trying to put together a war against the very evil empire of the Nazis and the Japanese and that sort of thing. As a young man, Churchill was part of the nobility. His great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, the Duke of Marlborough. But he was terribly mistreated by his parents, and there was a saying back then, I remember, the children to be seen and not heard. Churchill was neither seen nor heard. His parents just ignored him. They put him on a separate floor of the home in London, in the country homes, and it was sort of pathetic. They sent him away to school, which was the custom, when he was 7 or 8 years old, to a boarding school, and he he would wait, I've seen the letters, he'd wait to his parents, you know, it was going to be a play. And, dear mommy, please, can you come to see me in the play? Not even a play. It was going to be some kind of athletic event or a track meet or something. Dear Papa, can you come and watch me? And nothing. And he went on like that all the way through until it came time to go to what amounted to college. And his father thought he was too dumb to become a lawyer, which he was. And so they sent him to Sandhurst, which was the British equivalent of West Point. And Churchill became a cavalry officer. He was a really very fine cavalry officer. And not only that, but you know, you look at Churchill, you see the old pictures, he's a pudgy old guy. He was a great athlete. He was one of the great polo players that England had ever known. He was the captain of his team and his regimental team in India. They won the cup. But he wanted action. He was a soldier. And I think that accounts for why he was such a great leader in England. He knew what soldiering was all about. He had at one point a leave in London, or well in England, and he was at a country estate of some friends, and he met a character with the interesting name of Sir Bindon Blood. And Sir Bindon was a general in the British military, and Churchill extracted a promise that if Sir Bindon got a combat command, that he would take Churchill with him. And sure enough, he did in Afghanistan, which the British at that point had a mandate over part of India, but it's the same people, the grandfathers and great-grandfathers, that were fighting over there now. The mountain tribes who were fanatical and brave as bulls, and they were killers. And Churchill found himself in a situation in the mountain. They went to chastise one of these tribes. They killed each other all the time. Every valley had a different tribe. And they all killed each other. The British didn't care, but when they started killing Europeans, that was something different. So they went up there with an army to chastise them, and Sir Bindon Blood was the head of it. And he took Churchill with him, and he said, well, if you want to fight, go into this particular valley. Churchill did, and found himself in a confrontation with these mountain people who had big swords and big guns, and he had a shootout with his pistol with one of them, who was in the process of hacking to death another British officer. And after that, Churchill thought, well, he wrote newspaper stories, and he began to get paid for it, realized he was making more money writing newspaper stories about the war, being in the war, than he was as an officer. And so then he went to the Sudan and had the same kind of experience, being very much out in front of everything, and wrote a book about that, made a lot of money. Then he went down to the Boer War in South Africa. That was 1898, I think, and wound up, and of all things, of all the dumb things I can think of, an armored train. An armored train that would go down reconnaissance, but my God, an armored train runs on tracks. And the Boers quickly figured out that they just would go behind the train, which they did, and tear up the tracks, and there was Churchill. And he was captured, and they knew what they had, because Churchill at that point was the most highly paid war correspondent in the world. And they put him in prison in Johannesburg or Pretoria, wherever the Boer headquarters was. And he escaped. And he went 350 miles across the Boer territory until he found somebody who put him on another kind of train that was going to Portuguese territory. They allowed him to escape that way. And he became even a greater hero. And they went back home to England, and he ran for the Parliament, like his father had done before him, and got a seat and became a member of the Tory party, which is the Conservative Party. Then he switched to the Liberal Party, and at that point he was basically put out of business because the Conservatives ran the thing until it was called his wilderness years, until Hitler came into the forefront in the early 1930s, and Churchill was the first and loudest to warn against the Nazis and Hitler and what it meant to Europe. Nobody paid any attention, and sure enough, Hitler began conquering all the countries he could in Europe, and we'll get to him later. Stalin was a peasant brought up in Georgia, in the Caucasus. His mother somehow got him into a divinity school to become a priest. And he stayed in the divinity school until he was 15. He was expelled for reading obnoxious literature. And he then became a devotee of Vladimir Lenin, who was a Bolshevik, a communist. And he was, well, basically he was a common criminal. He robbed banks, he extorted money from people, he murdered, had people murdered. He was a fundraiser of sorts for the communists. And he did, but he was not very competent at it, actually. The first job he pulled off was a bank robber. He had an army, a bunch of kids working for him, 10, 12-year-old kids. And he had bombs, like, you know, the old cartoons with a round bomb with a fuse sticking out of it. This is back in the 1890s. And there was a big shipment of money coming in from somewhere to the bank there where he lived in Tiflis in Georgia. And they were going to rob the shipment. Well, the shipment, the first coach had the coach full of military people, and the coach with the money, and the coach with the bank officers. And these kids they rolled the bombs under the coaches, except the coach with the money, they rolled it under the horses, which of course disemboweled the horses, except several horses lived and they ran off with the money. It was like a gang that couldn't shoot straight. But Stalin did these things, and he would continuously get sent to Siberia by the Tsar. By his own account, I think he got sent to 8 or 10 times, but there's no historical proof of that. As a matter of fact, there's very little historical proof of anything because Stalin wrote his own history. If anybody wrote anything different, he'd have them exterminated. So it's sort of difficult to get the real lowdown on the man, but in the years since the 1950s, the historians have done that, and there's evidence that he went to Siberia at least 3 times, and it wasn't like when he sent the people to Siberia, when Stalin sent them, they went to the salt mines or wherever they died there. When the Tsar had Siberia, they sent people with a stipend, give them cash, so that they could buy food and buy clothing and have a place to live. And Stalin went there on his first trip. There was the criminal house, wherever he was, where common criminals were, and then there was the political exiles. And he was in the political exiles, but he was thrown out because when it came his turn to do the dishes, he just put the dishes on the floor and let the dogs lick them clean. And so he was expelled, and he went to live in the criminal house. He said he liked that better. He said the criminals were more honest than the political exiles. And his stories about how he would tell stories about how he escaped from Siberia and he was chased by wolves. And he had to swim icy rivers, and he was shot at by Cossacks, and went on and on. But the facts of the matter are that The first time he left, got out of Siberia, he wrote his mother, and she somehow raised enough money to get him on the Trans-Siberian Railroad. And he hitched a ride on a sleigh into the little town where the railroad came, got on the railroad and went back to Russia, where he commenced his criminal activities again. And then he was sent back again, and he escaped. And then the third time, which is really the only documented times, these three times, he didn't escape because World War I was going on, and he didn't want to escape because he afraid he'd be put in the army and sent to the Russian front. So he stayed in Siberia until the war was over and the Russian Revolution went on. And after that, Stalin politicked and maneuvered and murdered his way upwards until the death of Lenin, who died of a brain hemorrhage of some kind, and he became the head of the Soviet Union in 1923 and stayed the head of the Soviet Union and very probably killed more people than Hitler killed. Whether it was outright murder, which he had secret police killing people, he had starved people in the Ukraine and other Russian territories. But he was a pretty bad egg, and I could go on about him, but I'm afraid y'all gonna get the hook and take him away. I gotta look at my notes here. Roosevelt, he was an interesting kid. He grew up in an extremely wealthy family, far more wealthy than Churchill and certainly more wealthy than Stalin. At Hyde Park on the Hudson, the old Knickerbocker family. That's what they call the Dutch, the old original Dutch settlers in Manhattan. And he became, as a youth, a collector of everything under the sun. He collected birds' eggs and birds' nests. And he collected birds. And his father bought him a small gauge shotgun. He was like Audubon. He would shoot the bird, and then he learned taxidermy. He would stuff the birds. And his stuffed birds were museum quality. Some of them are in the Natural History Museum in New York. He was a rider, horseback rider, a swimmer, a sailor. And they sent him off to Groton, which was an Episcopal boys' school in Massachusetts, where the favored form of punishment for misbehavior was, guess what? The waterboarding. The waterboarding. The Reverend Endicott Peabody, and I'm told you got to pronounce it Peabody, not Peabody, but Peabody. The Reverend Peabody would have a vespers or whatever service they had, and the miscreant was informed of his misdeeds, and big football players would then take him down to the basement where they had a giant faucet, and put him on a bench, and they shoved him under the faucet, turned the faucet on. That's waterboarding, and they did that for 40 years before it was finally considered now a federal crime. Roosevelt went to Harvard, and he was not a great A student, but he was the editor of the Harvard Crimson, and he went to Columbia Law School. He never even finished. He passed the bar exam, and he married Eleanor, and he didn't like the law really. He didn't think it was a very interesting profession. He liked politics. He was a very good politician. He knew how to compromise with people. And he became an assemblyman. And he then became, in the administration of Woodrow Wilson, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, which was basically running the Navy. The Secretary of the Navy didn't do, he was a figurehead. Roosevelt ran the Navy, and of course he got all the perks. He got all the great naval yachts to go and do, and he lived in Washington and they had 5 children at that point with Eleanor. And then he had a very famous, now famous, affair with Eleanor's secretary, social secretary, called Lucy Mercer. And it was a real love affair. It wasn't just a sexual dalliance. And he then went over to Europe during World War I to see how the Navy was doing, and on the way back he contracted influenza. They took him off the ship, probably more dead than alive, and took him home. And his mother and his wife, Eleanor, nursed him back to health. At one point, Eleanor looked through hanging up his clothes, and she found a packet of letters from Lucy Mercer, which indicated that there had been an affair. And she offered him a divorce. And he was going to take it until his mother said, if you take it, I'm going to disinherit you. Which meant that he would have to live on a lawyer's salary for the rest of his life. He didn't want to do that. So he promised he would not see Lucy Mercer anymore, which in fact he did. She was present at every one of his inaugurals, all 4 of them. But, and she was present when he died in Warm Springs, Georgia. But Roosevelt then, of course, became governor of New York. He contracted polio up at Campbell Island, where they had a summer home. And most people at the time didn't know it. He couldn't walk. He was in a wheelchair, but the press was kind enough to not take pictures of him. Very few pictures taken when he was in his wheelchair. He could stand up. He could be helped to something like this. He would stand up long enough to make a talk. But he then became president after, after the great stock market crash and the Depression, and he set about with his New Deal and doubled the size of government. And he, like Churchill, saw the coming war, the looming war in Europe, but he had political problems at home because there were a lot of people in America who had friends and family go over to Europe and killed, and they didn't think that it was worth fighting for the Europeans again. They said, they should have solved it the first time. And so politically, he was sort of hamstrung, but he forged a relationship with Churchill. He recognized Stalin's Soviet Union. He didn't have a relationship with Stalin, but he recognized the country. And that brings us up to Roosevelt in World War II, and all 3 of them in World War II. Now, the war, when it came, there's a movie out about Winston Churchill, and I was going to go see it. And then I read a review of it where it said that after the fall of France, Lord Halifax, who was the foreign minister, went to Churchill with some other ministers and said to him, it looks like it may be time to make some terms with Herr Hitler. In other words, to surrender. Now, in the movie version, according to this review, Churchill dithers and he worries and he goes down to the street, and then he goes in subway into the tube. And he asks the people there, what do you think we should do? Should we fight on, or should we surrender, make terms, whatever? That's absurd. Churchill didn't do that. What he said was this to Halifax and these other ministers. He said, if this Long Island history of ours is going to end, it should end with each one of us lying on the ground, gurgling in his own blood. That's what he told them. That's leadership right there. He didn't dither. He didn't go in. He didn't need to ask people what they thought. He knew what to think. At Churchill, he liked to drink. There's a great saying, or what do you call it, but somebody wrote about how he would go, when he was prime minister, to have breakfast at his club in the morning, and he would have scrambled eggs and sausage and have a double scotch before he went to face the Parliament. But he wasn't a drunkard. He paced himself. But there were occasions that he was overserved. And he had what they call today, I guess, a frenemy. The Lady Astor, they disagreed on many things. And one of these occasions, they would all go to dinners together. And she said to him, "Winston, you're drunk." He said, "Yeah, I am drunk. And you're ugly. And in the morning, I will be sober." And on another occasion, she said to him, "Winston, if I was your wife, I would put poison in your tea." And he replied, "Yeah, if you were my wife, I would drink it." But he was the most extraordinary leader. I'm sure you all remember the vibrant speeches he made. "We will fight them on the beaches, we'll fight them." I'll have to look at this more closely. "We'll fight them in the streets, we'll fight them on the plains, we'll fight them in the mountains, and we will never give up." That's leadership. And he would have these radio talks, and the people absolutely loved him. He knew war. In the First World War, Churchill was forced to resign after the terrible Gallipoli tragedy, which wasn't really his fault. And he could have just gone back into Parliament. He didn't. He joined his regiment over in France in 1916 as a colonel and fought in the trenches. And I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to go faster. I could talk about Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin all day, but I'm going to wind it up because I know we all like some questions. You know, when these guys passed away, Roosevelt died in Warm Springs, over here in Georgia, with Lucy Mercer at his side. And they had an extraordinary funeral for him. They had an entire infantry division from Fort Benning come up and line the tracks, line the road to the railroad tracks. He went to Washington where they had the service in the White House, and they went to the little funeral, the churchyard there where he grew up in Hyde Park. They had the whole senior class of West Point there, the West Point band. And he was the most important deacon in that church ever to be buried in that churchyard. And as he was being buried, the band played Hail to the Chief one last time. Stalin, he had a stroke, and Khrushchev and Molotov and his other cronies, they went there to take a look at him. He was at his doctor, and they didn't even call the doctor for 3 or 4 days, and they realized he put all the doctors and stroke doctors in prison because they were Jewish. And so finally when they got him out, they said, "Well, nothing we can do for him," so he passed away. Okay, we're going to treat Stalin just like Lenin. We're going to put him in a glass mausoleum. It was one of the great feats of taxidermy, I think, of all time. They stuffed him and put him in a glass thing. It's supposed to last 100, 200 years until about 10 years after he was dead, and they began to uncover the crimes, the horrible crimes he committed. And so he was whisked out of his mausoleum tomb where people were supposed to come and look at him, and buried underneath the Kremlin wall in an unmarked grave. Churchill died of he lived a long time. And all three of these guys died of strokes. Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill. Churchill lived to be way up there and didn't die until 1965. When I was a senior in college, I remember that day. I was saddened by it. But they had a great funeral for him in London. Hundreds of thousands of people came to it. They had 100 sailors towing his casket to Great St. Paul's Cathedral, which miraculously had survived that German bombing. And there's a wonderful photograph of it, just standing up there, everything else is flattened. And after the service, they took Roosevelt, he was going to be, Churchill, down to the Thames River. He was going to go 60 miles upriver to the family seat of the Marlboroughs to be buried. And they put him on the varnished stern of an admiral's barge. And I think it's YouTube, there are pictures of this, movie pictures. As he was going up the Thames, where you get to that great London, the curve with all the shipyards on, and big cranes. And as he passed, each crane bowed down. It was a sight. And his doctor, Lord Moran, I think wrote probably the greatest epitaph that Churchill has had. He said at Bladen, which was a little country churchyard, in a country churchyard, in the stillness of a winter evening, in the presence of his family and a few friends, Winston Churchill was committed to the English earth, which, in his finest hour, he held inviolate. Thank you.
One question. I'm going to ask her a question.
Winston, was there one common characteristic that you could see in those three men that made them so remarkable?
I got hearing.
Was there one common characteristic among those three?
Yeah, they were tough. All three of them were tough. They were tough in different ways. They had to be tough to get through that war. I mean, nobody knew how terrible it was, even while it was happening. But they had to figure it out. I mean, the world was in the balance. The entire earth was in the balance of that war. And the forces of evil could have taken over.
That's great. Now we're gonna let you get out there so you can sign some books.
Oh, I always sign books.
And greet people. So we're going to let you and Jake head out and get a head start.
Very good.
Thank you for being here today. What a wonderful talk. So again, Winston will be out in the lobby. Get your the Allies and Forrest Gump, both those books will be out there. We'll also make a donation in Winston's name to his favorite charity, the Salvation Army. All right, upcoming programs. Eric, roll the video for me.
A very special thanks to my Dr. Pepper.
Hey, Sport. You know how we're a college football family. We like to drink Dr. Pepper and watch games.
Yeah.
Well, we found this under your mattress.
Soccer.
Everyone was really into it this summer.
It's a gateway sport, you know. First you're watching soccer, the next thing you know you're going to watch lacrosse.
Look, it's perfectly natural to experiment with other sports at your age.
Easy, Mom.
I've even drank other sodas.
What?
There's other sodas?
Dr. Pepper, the official drink of fans.
All right, so that's, for those who are into gateway sports, next week we have Jay Heaps of the Birmingham Legion soccer team, president and GM will be here. I thought that was appropriate. Anyway, That's Thanksgiving week, so it's also free guest day. As you know, I've been encouraging truancy also, so you would bring your kids, grandkids, but it's a great opportunity to hear from Jay and what we're doing to turn Birmingham into a gateway sport and soccer. So week after that, we have Bud McFarland. Again, thank you, Ed Rao. I mean, what an exciting former national security advisor to President Ronald Reagan. So excited about that. Should be a fascinating program. Isabel Rubio will be here on December 4th, the executive director of the Hispanic Interest Coalition of Alabama. Be really interesting. It's a civic club, great opportunity to hear a different perspective from Isabel, what's going on in the Hispanic community. We talked about the holiday celebration on the 6th, December 11th, really excited. Rod Frazier, legend in Alabama business, and Taylor Peak, our very own Taylor Peak, are going to talk about their new venture, Coding Solutions. Then we have the Salvation Army here on December 18th and have a little more holiday celebration as well. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you for being here today.